Okay, Ruben, you're up.
All right, I'm Ripon, and I did my presentation on the 1906 SF earthquake, and more importantly, how earthquakes form in the Bay Area and what's their importance. Or not their importance, but like, you know. Okay, so what was it? It was an earthquake in San Francisco, and it occurred on April 18, 1906 at 5:12 a.m. It was a 7.9 magnitude earthquake, and it lasted for under a minute. The epicenter of the earthquake was in the Pacific Ocean, 2 miles west of San Francisco. What happened? It left more than 50% of the city's population homeless and over 3,000 deceased. 80% of the city was leveled through the fires. It almost costed $8 billion to rebuild the city after the damage. And shockwaves could be felt from LA to Oregon. Now let's get into the basics. What exactly happened? We know it was an earthquake. There was tectonic plates that shifted in the ground, and there was unstable rocks in the ground through the tectonic plates, which resulted in the earthquake. But let's look into it more. The San Andreas Fault is what causes most of San Francisco's earthquakes and most of California's. It's a straight slip fault, which means there's horizontal movement in blocks, so it shifts up and down horizontally. It's a major fault line in California, which ranges from 800 miles to 850 miles. And it's a major boundary between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate, which are both major tectonic plates. So what are faults and how are they formed? They're formed near tectonic plate boundaries because of the plate motion and the pushing and pulling of the continental crust. And the splits in the ground can last up to like hundreds of miles. So what are the significance of tectonic plate boundaries? Tectonic plate boundaries can produce enormous amount of energy, and they create mountain ranges, earthquakes, and tsunamis. And one example is Tonga, which produced a volcanic eruption. Most California earthquakes come from the Pacific and North American plates interacting with each other, as the pressure that both builds up on them creates earthquakes, which is how California gets their earthquakes. So what did we learn? The 1906 earthquake was caused by the San Andreas Fault because, as mentioned earlier, the Pacific and North American plate interacted with each other for earthquakes that happen in San Francisco. We know that tectonic plates can produce immense amounts of power, and the San Andreas Fault, which I said earlier, is responsible for California's largest earthquakes. And I can't stress that enough because that's just how important it is. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Ruben.